I do think one thing that's really important in tie-in novels are like they come with inbuilt fandoms and you have a responsibility to that fandom.
Mhm.
And like I feel very strong about fandoms. I wrote fan fiction back in my day.
Yes.
And so I was like, I'm not going to do this unless I think I can do right by them.
Hey there, welcome to the Winx Forever Podcast. I'm Lola, creator, host, and lifelong Winx fan. I'm taking a deep dive into the very cool universe of Winx Club. So whether you've been a Winx fan since 2004, like myself, or you vaguely remember the show from your childhood, or maybe if you're even being introduced to it for the first time, I want to say welcome. This is the Winx Forever Podcast. Hello, fairy friends. Welcome back to the Winx Forever podcast. I am your host, Lola Valentine. We are taking a break this episode from our Winx Club Season 1 rewatch to bring you a very special conversation with today's guest. We have Sarah Rees Brennan, the author of the Fate, the Winx Saga Tie-in Novelizations for the Netflix original series. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hello, fairy friends. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Lola.
Of course, of course. Wow, I've been so looking forward to our conversation today to talk about not only your latest installation of the Fate the Winx Saga tie-in novel, Lighting the Fire, but also we want to dive into, like getting to know you and as a writer, as a creative. So I would love to give our listeners a chance to kind of get to know you and your work a bit. So just kind of diving in, when did you begin writing, like especially novels?
Well, I began my career as a writer because when I was 7, I wanted to be a ballerina, but I was so bad that I once knocked down every other girl in the ballet recital. My mother described it as you were the bowling ball and they were the pins.
Oh no.
Living in Ireland, Irish dancing was not much better. And so I was like, I need a hobby where I'm perhaps alone in a room, can't hurt anyone else. So
Oh,
I wrote a book
bless.
about my interests at the time, which were ponies and ninjas.
Okay, all right. We love.
Indeed. And then just kept writing books until for like several decades, which leads us
Nice.
up to today. But I was my first book that was published, oh God, more than 10 years ago now. And
Wow.
that is when I quit my library job and moved back to Ireland and have been writing here ever since, using it as a base for
Amazing.
adventures.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And you your childhood home you mentioned was just right down the road from where they film Fate the Winx Saga at the Kilrudery Castle, correct?
That's exactly right. Anthony Ardea and the whole Brabazon family
Mhm.
upkeep the grounds and were really welcoming to me because I wrote to them. I was like, "Hey, I'm writing books set in your castle. Can I come see? Can I see some behind the scenes things?" And they let me into several things. And then a couple things they were like, "No, that's forbidden, Sarah." So I
Yes.
sneaked in.
Oh, that is so fun. I love you just getting out there and just getting inspiration from the actual like, place that you're writing about and how accessible that is.
It's such an
S-
amazing place and it's such a great set. And they let me like climb all over the specialist platforms and then
oh
pretend I
my
was fighting.
God.
I'm very bad at.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much.
Although there was one really hilarious moment for me in witnessing the setup. This was nobody's fault. It was just very funny. You see, Killarney is also a working farm. So they have a
Oh.
sign up saying, don't feed the pigs. And they have all the extras set up in a field covered in tents, and someone just didn't take down the sign. So the extras were
Oh
like,
no.
what are they trying to say? We're just here to be fairies.
Don't feed the cast their pigs. That's so funny. Well, what inspires you just creatively as a writer, or who even?
Oh, well, who? I mean, I have so many favorite writers, but I would have to say just stories in general inspire
Mm.
me. I always think like no matter what I've watched or read, even if I hated it, it gives me ideas. I
Yeah.
mean, my most recent film that I saw was Top Gun 2, and it actually gave me a lot of ideas, even though I am not a fighter pilot, nor do I
Right.
intend to write about same.
That's incredible. Well, you mentioned that your first book, your first novel was published, some 10 years ago, but you have just so many different works that you have published since then, including the novelizations of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and most recently, as we are here to discuss, The Fate the Winx Saga. Um, how did you begin writing novelizations specifically for series?
Well, I had been taking time off writing because I was unwell. I
Mm-hmm.
had cancer, and so that puts you off your stroke. And I was kind of
Yeah.
tottering back in, being like, "Well, I still want to be a writer, but will anyone remember me? Does anyone know what's happening?" And as stories do, I was comforted by I was in chemo when Riverdale came out, and I was like, "Oh, I love it! It's so fun."
Mm-hmm.
And then I was a big fan of Sabrina the Teenage Witch back in the day. So before I had anything to do with Sabrina, the show, I was like, I'm so excited it's coming out. And
Yes.
then an editor at Scholastic, Beth Dunphy, wrote to me and she'd read my previous book, Unspoken, which is sort of a
Amazing.
creepy gothic romance with magic in it. And she
Yeah.
said she really liked it and that she thought that I was the person who would be best for writing the tie-in. And I was like, I don't know what it I haven't read that many times, but I'm really excited and I would really love
Yeah.
to be part of this project because I think it's going to be so fun. And then, I said I would do it and I read the graphic novels and I read the scripts and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it was completely my kind of world. And Beth Dunphy was really one of the people in publishing who maybe kind of held open the door and made me feel that I was welcome back when I was like, can I even write now? Because,
Yeah.
you know, I think we've all had moments in our life when you're just brought completely down. And you're like, I'm
Yeah.
terrible. Everything's terrible. And
That
then
imposter
having,
syndrome sets in. Yeah.
exactly. And having someone like look down on me like, I think you're cool. Do you want to go do something cool? It's an
Yes.
amazing moment. And I had so much fun with it. And for me, writing has always been really collaborative. I have a lot of writing partners, and like
Mhm.
we'll send each other books and we'll be like, okay, here are my thoughts. Here's my speech. Here's what you should do here. And
Yes.
so this was just kind of doing that on a grander scale. I was like, oh, great. Someone's already come up with the character names and everything.
Yeah.
Now I'm just
Yeah.
going to bug people. And also because I think I was new to it and wasn't sure how it worked, I was like, I'm going to just do that. So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, so this is what the actors think. And they were like, Sarah, you can't contact the actors. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Well, I already did. So that's awkward.
So like that is so fun. Well, how did contacting the actors and talking to them kind of help you write for your characters in your novels?
Well, it really did. I mean, I counted some, and some I'm not allowed to say who replied and who didn't because
Yeah.
some have been like, "No thanks, lady,"
Yes,
which is
yeah.
completely fair because demented questions about your character from the beyond. But some who were like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to talk about character because actors have to think about their characters so much. 'Cause they're like, what am
Yeah,
I trying to convey? What's my motivation in this scene?"
definitely.
And so having them say, well, I think this, and I
Mhm.
think I'm inspired by this background, and this is what I really have trouble with. So I'm always thinking, if only I could be more like this when I do my scene. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. Thank you. And then you see how they're conveying it when you see them on screen. I was also
Yeah.
very lucky. I was shown early screeners of the first season, so it was like the very rough cut, and so you could kind of see
Yes.
how the story was taking shape, and it helped my story take shape as well.
That's incredible. I love that. Yeah, I mean, you obviously write your own originals and then these original adaptations for book for the script of like the first Fate tie-in novel was an adaptation of the script, as you mentioned. And it's so interesting to me. When I was growing up with Winx Club, I also had similar adaptations from scripts
Right?
of the original um, American English dub of Winx Club. I'd never really had any kind of like interaction with a novelization such as this with, you know, outside of Winx Club. So like to read your novels, it was just a way different just sort of genre for me. Was that a different writing process for you, taking something that was already, as you mentioned, like they had already had the characters and the stories developed, having to kind of flush that out? Like, what was that process like for you?
I mean, it was really interesting. I have to say, like, I've done several time properties now, and it's really different
Yeah.
every time because, you know, I want the creators to lead the way
Mm,
and to like, how do you want this to work? So I did Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and I
mm-hmm.
did the Fence series of graphic novels with C.S.
Yeah.
Pacat, which is about fencing school and boys
Mm-hmm.
were rivals. And then
Yes.
from Scholastic, the same editor who asked me to do Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was like, "Well, we're doing this Winx thing." I was like, "Sure, it's filming down where down where I used to
Yeah.
live." I said, what? Okay.
It's kind of perfect.
Like,
Yeah.
anyway, I just think you'd be a really good fit for this because I'm very into Irish literature and I'm very into
Mm-hmm.
W.B. Yeats, and she was like, they're
Yes.
really drawing from that, and I was like, but I don't know about this property.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I do think one thing that's really important in tie novels are like they come with inbuilt fandoms and you have a responsibility to that fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And like I feel very strong about fandoms. I wrote fan fiction back in my day.
Yes.
And so I was like, I'm not going to do this unless I think I can do right by them.
Mm.
And they were also like, I want you to hold off on watching the past Winx Club because I want you to get us to see this as like its own thing and then get
Yeah.
informed. And I was like, okay, well, you got to
Interesting.
show me it soon because I'm going back and watching everything.
Yes. That is so interesting. I absolutely love that. And so you taking just that initiative as for respect for the fandom, because with a lot of new things that get introduced to fandoms, as fans do, they tend to freak out, you know. And so
And I
for
totally get why.
better or for worse, you know. And so to hear that and to hear such, like, you know, you taking such care to you know, be intimate about the details is just very, it's just very heartwarming, and like it feels good as a fan, as a lifelong fan. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I love for stories. And it really teaches me to love things better as well. Like
Yeah.
going around them, going on Tumblr and Twitter and seeing things. I was like, what do you love? I could love that.
Yeah.
Like I think it was another poet, Rupert Brooke, who said, "Love wakens love," and I've always believed that you can tell if you love something, that it always comes through.
Oh my God. Yes, I love that so much. I always tell like my clients, you know, that if you're not passionate about something, like no one else is going to be passionate with you, you know? And so I love that, the passion leading passion, the love leading love, like that is so true. And thank you for sharing that. um I was interested in the first novel. Obviously you were given kind of a script to work with from the first season. It is very for the most part, you know, there are things that you had to flesh out, you know, to kind of describe in the book, you know, using the context and everything from the first season. But with the new book, you didn't have a script to work with. So what was that like, taking season one and being like, okay, let's go back. What led everybody to this moment? Walk me through that.
Well, it was actually, I think, easier for me than the novelization because
Interesting.
the tie-ins were what I did with Sabrina, like the sort
Yeah.
of how did we start here, and then, you know, between seasons, what might have happened, who's developed in interesting ways.
Interesting.
And since, you know, I write original books, I'm very used to being like, well, what's the story? How are we going to move everybody?
Yes.
Whereas with the novelization, which was really fun to do as well, but it was like,
Yeah.
these are the words, they're set in stone. You can't be like, oh, I've
Mm-hmm.
actually had an idea, because that would be
Right.
disrespectful to the scriptwriter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so with the script, with the novelization, it was very much like, here are the scripts, and I'm sort of peering behind them. I'm like, okay, here, I think that it's kind of mysterious how this character feels in this scene. So
Mm,
let's try to take from that. It's basically, I think of them both as liminal stories, which are like
okay.
stories that exist in the like little dark spaces and thresholds of the universe,
Yes.
but they're different kinds of threshold. With the novelization, it's like, oh, when I was watching that, I kind of wanted to learn more about what I was watching. And then with the tie-in, it's more, oh, I wonder what happened in between times. I wonder what makes
Mm-hmm.
these people this way. And also a little bit, you can see a few more things in about if this
Yes.
is the kind of person they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clear where they might be going, but there's a little hint about what they might do next.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's what's fun.
Really
Um,
interesting. How collaborative was that process with the writers of the show for the novelization and even the new tie-in for Lighting the Fire?
well, they were really great and receptive. I want to do a shout out to Sarah Sagrapanti, who is
Yes.
the liaison between me and the script writers and between Nation Script. She liaises everyone. And
Amazing.
everyone was really open. Because again, like I said, I was like, if I won't do it if I can't do a good job. So like at
Mm-hmm.
first we were talking about, we were like, we'd love to do a prequel. And we were like, are we going to do just Bloom? And I was like, then it would have to be Bloom with a whole cast of new people, and it would be interesting to
Yeah.
see more of Bloom. I wanted to see her in
Yeah.
the world, but I was always like, we love Althea, we love the other characters. I don't think that I could do great with that. Many other writers I'm sure could have.
Yeah.
Like, I think that we can see everybody because they're all in interesting places, and
Mm-hmm.
they're sort of sowing the seeds for destruction or you know or good seeds, non-destruction
Yes.
to come. And being like, because a lot of the characters are second years, I was like, well, what was their first year like?
Yes.
What's these
Yeah.
guys' first year?
Exactly. And I love too that, going along with, the original Winx Club series, like it was all pretty much the same, like setting where these new characters were coming into their first year. Well, what was Stella and Sky's and Brandon's and Riven's, first
Exactly.
year at Althea and Red Fountain like that was something that we as fans never got to see, and so to see it kind of play out and now this adaptation of it is just it's so fun, and
Like,
so I
wow.
love that.
Yeah, but I was really nervous to say it because I was, they might be like, okay, Sarah. Well, that's nothing. No, we discussed it then. They were like, yeah, and they got into it. And I think because they've seen the characters so through so many things, because there's a
Yeah.
mastermind at the helm, because there's been like big changes between seasons, between
Yeah.
development, and then this very new live action thing, they were like, all right, we see that Jewel has many facets. Let's explore this one. And then I was
Yes.
like, okay, then I have 1 million questions about the characters that you must answer. And they're like, we've made a mistake. No, they were still very nice.
Oh, that's so fun. I I love that they were very receptive though to you bringing those ideas to the table, because that's very encouraging, I'm sure, as a writer.
It was, but it also was really encouraging to me in that they have so many ideas for where the characters are going and what's behind the
Yes.
characters. So it's like there was no question I asked they didn't have a great answer for.
That's really cool. I love to hear that, because it's really cool to see, these characters on the screen, and then to just kind of, like you were saying, like peer between the scenes, like peer in, like, through the different scenes that we get to see on screen and to read about. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that has not read the new novel yet, but to see the different relationships even that people were forming in their first year or not in their first year at all. And, and to see, oh, well, that is why they reacted this way in the actual show and the season, and even in, A Fairy's Path. So it's just so cool.
I mean, I think all stories are love stories in a way. So it's also interesting to me to be like, well, what's, their family relationship like?
Yes.
What what's Tara's relationship with her brother been like when he
Mm-hmm.
got to go to school and she didn't? What about Sky and Silva? As
Yes.
especially Silva, we see in like this interesting like point in his life, and that he's clearly this gruff soldier guy who's been carrying this really heavy weight. And yet in season one, you see that he's already in the process of opening up to Sky. Clearly, I
Mm-hmm.
think was going to tell him anyway, sometime
Yeah.
soon. And yet I was like, and yet Sky still acts insecure with him. So they clearly had some issues that they worked out, but not quite enough.
Right. Yes.
Almost went totally right. So I was
Yeah.
like, what was that process like?
Yes. Yeah. And I love that the way that you do a really good job of telling different people's perspectives in such a way that they all just intertwine so well together in this novel, especially. I think for me, because it was such a new way of reading a novel, I think that the only time that I've had experience with reading a novel from different perspectives like this was like Breaking Dawn Part 2, of the Stephanie Meyer series Twilight, but I think that's why the first novel, it was so foreign to me, and I wouldn't say a difficult time like reading it, but it was just new, and so I was trying to experience all these different people's emotions throughout the book. But so I really enjoyed lighting the fire in the way that you just kind of full send like dived even deeper into everyone's different complexities, and it was just so fun.
I'm so glad. I mean, with my own books, I've written books that are just one perspective, and I've also
Hmm.
written multiple perspectives. But I feel like with the tie-ins, because TV is a different medium and it will show you scenes with them, that if you
Hmm.
then leave out a character, you just stay on one character's head, even though
Yeah.
Bloom's our protagonist, you lose a lot of what the glimpse of the TV, the television gives you into someone else's lives. And I didn't want anyone to be
Yeah.
like, well, great, thanks. I'm missing Muse a lot.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and you can really see that through your writing, and I really appreciate that about it. You're listening to the Winx Forever Podcast. You were mentioning how in writing the novelization with the screenwriters, how you don't want to take too many liberties with their script because that is their script. I did notice, though, as I was going back and kind of reading through The Fairy's Path again, it wasn't quite as edgy as the first season. Was that intentional? Was that a direction that they asked you to go with it? Or, it seems like you have been able to step away from that censorship in the new novel, but tell me kind of about that.
I think the Fairy's Path was also intended to be like it is both, it's for the fans, obviously, but it's also intended to be if someone's like, oh, well, I give that new show a try.
Yeah,
Well, there's this book and I could just pick it up and leaf through it. So in some ways it's intended to be a soft intro. I would say
understanding.
I
Yeah.
always have as much edge as people allow me and perhaps more.
I love it. I love that so much. Yeah, that makes total sense. Just kind of ease them into it, and then yeah,
I'm
once
like,
once
well,
they're in, you got them
well,
hooked.
yeah. Oh, shut the door. Now I have you.
Yes, incredible. Amazing. Well, we're going to take a short break, but before we do, I always like giving my guests kind of a round of rapid fire questions. So, Sarah, are you ready for these rapid fire
I'm ready.
questions? All right, let's go. Who is your favorite Winx Suite member from Fate the Winx Saga?
Stella.
Amazing. What is your favorite Winx Club season?
Season 3.
Okay, okay.
There's so much character development.
Oh, so much character development. Who's your favorite character's perspective to write for in your novels?
Riven.
Amazing, amazing. Didn't
He's
see
so
that one
surly,
coming.
but he has a lot of love to give.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
lots of
people
layers.
don't expect it. I'm like, and
Yeah.
he's so secretly, shamefully loves people. He loves Sky.
Yes.
He loves Tara. He loves, I can't say.
We can't say. Oh, but yes, I love that. I was not expecting that one, but really fun. If you were a fairy in Fate, what elemental power would you have?
I'd like to say technology because I wish I could make it work, but it's obviously fire. I have set many accidental fires.
Oh my goodness.
Me and Bloom, such a kinship. Once during an exam, I set a fire during an exam in school.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, intentionally to get out of the exam?
It was a cooking exam.
Oh no. Incredible. And then last question, what is your favorite ship in Fate the Winx Saga?
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like that's a spoiler. um,
Drama. Okay, who's your favorite ship then in Winx Club?
oh, I
Is
feel
that
like
also a spoiler?
I feel it might indicate something. I will just say I cannot speak of romance, but I love the family relationship between Sky and Silva.
We'll take it. We'll take it. Awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into Sarah Rees Brennan's new tie-in novel to the Netflix original series, Fate the Winx Saga, so don't go anywhere. Don't miss an episode of the Winx Forever Podcast. Follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released. We are back with today's guest, Sarah Rees Brennan, the author of the Fate the Winx Saga tie-in novelizations for the Netflix original series. Her latest installment of the series, Lighting the Fire, is out now, and we are just going to dive right back into our discussion about it. I actually asked my fellow Winx Forever friends what they would like to know about the novels, and a surprising amount wanted to know if you had actually seen the original Winx Club series, which I think is so funny because I feel like you're very open about that you have done your due diligence and your research about the fandom, about the series. And I know that you've said it several times, but in order to, prepare to write these, what about the original series did you enjoy, and what are you trying to really pull from the original series to include in your novelizations of Fate?
Well, I watched season one of Fate the Winx Saga before I watched any of Winx Club because
Yes, they
that
asked
was
you to.
to do. I
Yeah.
was like, it's queued up. I'm doing it. And but that meant that since I did have to wait a little while, I did actually go online and see, what people said about Winx and what they loved about it, and even read reviews for previous tie-ins and
Yeah.
Reddit discussions of which episodes were the best, because I was like, maybe those are the episodes I should be sure to watch. So my
Yeah.
first exposure to Winx was really the fans, and the fandom was the love for it. And then I got to see what they loved.
Ah, that's
Be
so
like, oh, I
fun.
agree. Oh, 10-4, good point made. And that was really fun because, again, when you love something, you see the details of it, just like you pay more attention to a person you love than a Randall on the street.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
people be like, oh, notice in this, make sure to watch out for this piece in this episode. And I'm like, oh, right, yeah. And I was saying that I think season 3 of Winx Club was my favorite. It's partly because, you're introduced to Stella. Stella is my girl in a lot of ways because
Yeah.
I love that she is like the golden haired princess, but not at all that type. But
Yeah.
she's like, you could see her as the spoiled princess archetype, but that she's not that at all. And then in season 3, she really helps out her friends, that she's actually the one giving some great advice. And I think you can see that in Fate the Winx Saga as well. It's when she's like, I'm the older girl. And not just she's like, I'm a very grudging mentor at the start, but then she actually does do mentor things.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that when she says a typical Stella thing, you also see how the girls start to understand her better. So to the point where she's like, I criticize your outfit. And Tara's like, I feel loved.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that. And I love that you are pulling these, essence of the original series, not only from the fans, but from, watching it yourself and forming your own opinions and ideas about it, and being able to converse with the fans about the original and Fate, which is so special.
It was really fun watching things and hearing certain lines that I felt, because the characters are different. It's a very different iteration, but sometimes they'd say a line that I was like, that's so true for both of them. I'm going to try to use that.
Okay, so that is a perfect segue because I was about to ask you, girl, okay, so, and this is where I geek out. So I'm just like, this week, reading lighting the fire, like, preparing for our discussion. And I get so caught off guard because I'm like, hello, that's a direct pull quote from the original American dub that I grew up with. Hello? And it just filled me with such joy because, I mean, first of all, the dub that I grew up with, I mean, it was the very first American original, like, English dub. So it was before the Nickelodeon dub. It was, wasn't the English dub that everyone else in this English-speaking world grew up with. It was just the American one. And so it was very funny when I grew up and I realized, oh, there are different dubs. And my dub that I grew up with wasn't the more popular one. And so learning that about the dub that I grew up with, when I came across them from episodes that I can verbatim still quote today at 27 years old, and like to know exactly what episode you got that from, like that just tells me how much you care and like how much you actually, poured in time to go back and to, like I also noticed that they were all Stella related because you love our girl Stella.
Oh, princess fancy.
we love Stella. We love Stella here. She is my favorite as well. And so
she's also really good at a snappy quote. So you can,
yes.
Whereas say sometimes the other girls will say like more plot relevant things, and you're like, well, that I don't know how to fit that in. Great point, Bloom. But
yes, Bloom out here giving the facts. Stella's just here for like comedic relief and like just putting people in their place, and it's great. I love it. Wow. But yes, so all of those nods to the original like American English dub like did not go unnoticed. I noticed every single one of them.
It was, and I felt they were illustrative of character, but it was also meant to be just like a little wink to fans, being like, I see you guys. You obviously, there would not be a show without your continued love. You're important.
Oh yes, it's so fun. So yeah, I did have a little fangirl freak out moment about all of those. So thank you. You're listening to the Winx Forever Podcast. But of course, like any good, live action adaptation of an original work, Fate the Winx Saga does take a lot of liberties with the original show, as it should, since it's just inspired by, the original Winx Club series. One of which I know is a big topic amongst the fans is the absence of technology, and more specifically, technology magic in the other realm, in the other world in Fate the Winx Saga. So I would love to know, it made it very clear in literally the very first page in the new novel in Lighting the Fire that there is maybe a presence of technology magic in the Fate the Winx Saga realm. So is there anything that you can share about maybe the role that technology plays in the Fate world?
Well, I do feel like already in Fate the Winx Saga, there's not technology in that. I was like, I'm writing fairy books to my friend Holly Black, who writes a lot of really great fairy books.
Okay.
Read the Folk of the Air series and Spiderwick, guys. And she was always like, "Oh, I'll get you. You'll write fairies soon. You're Irish. You can't help it." And I was like, I wrote elves in my book in Other Lands, and she was like, "Almost." And I was like, "Okay, well, it's fairies. So you were right." And she was like, "I see." And she's
you made it.
The fairies have Instagram because she wasn't familiar with the property. In fact, I forbade her. She's just so very good. She has critiqued both my Sabrina and my Winx books without ever watching the shows because I was like, you need to come to this and be like, does this work as a book on its own as well?
Yes, absolutely.
So she's like, the fairies have Instagram? I was like, yeah, the fairies have Instagram.
Yeah, they're 21st century fairies. Hello.
Exactly. And that both makes the fairies relatable and says, technology is not far into this world. All the fairies have it without having a specific technology fairy character.
Yet?
So I feel the door is open, and that's a really cool facet of Winx, which I think everyone would love to see more of. I can't say more. I can't.
But I agree. I do think that everyone would love to see more of it, and just that, even that subtle little nod, I think, I mean, we're already in this next season of Fate the Winx Saga are getting a very, pivotal character added to the crew that we are very excited to meet this iteration of our dear fairy of nature, Flora.
Laura's gonna knock your socks off.
We
I
are
was like,
we are
what can I
ready.
say about Flora? And they were like, shush, shush. And I was like,
Okay, okay.
a little bit.
Yes, yes. All of the subtle nods in the new novel, even leading up to the new season of Fate the Winx Saga, is just, I mean, it's just more anticipation, and I'm excited.
I mean, that's part of the fun. Everybody waiting together and having little nuggets to wait on. And like I said, I
Yes.
think Winx does amazing in that like it focuses on the friendship of the main girls. And like I was
Hmm.
saying, when talking about shipping, that friendship is what I think of most.
Hmm.
But also the family relationships are so good. And so
Yes.
now we've seen a lot of parent, child, and brothers and sisters. Now we're going to go cousins, and it's just going to be a whole new, really exciting relationship.
Yes. Oh wow, that is so exciting. It's really cool to see, you know, um, all of these characters that we have known for basically our entire lives, the past 18 years, for fans that, have been around for that long, to see them kind of played out in this way, and to see people like you just pouring into the fandom and pouring into the characters, all the love and attention that you give to it. So thank you for that. What can we expect from you regarding Fate the Winx Saga in the future? Is there a second novelization for season 2 on the
No,
horizon?
I think as I said, I think the novelization was like meant to be the soft intro, so that
Okay,
I
okay.
think well, of course, delight to put some feelings behind some scripts. I think that was the novelization. However, for tie-ins, I think we're all agreed that the door is open and we're gonna see
Right.
how it goes. I'm happy to be in Fairyland at any time, and there's just gonna be so much excitement and things happening, and certainly we're gonna start season 2 in an exciting place.
Amazing. Amazing.
So yeah, that so more like of lighting the fire than the fairy's path would
Okay.
have some horizon, but who can say really? And it is such a wide world that,
Yes.
like graphic novels, amazing, the tie-in books, amazing, um, the podcasts, amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Amazing. Well, really cool meeting you. I want to give you a chance to let our listeners know where they can find you and your novels on the web and beyond in the other realm.
Well, in this current realm, before we all rejoin our friends in Althea very soon
Hmm.
now, September 16th. Am I right?
I'm
I'm bad
ready.
at
I'm ready. Yes.
dates. um, you can always find me at Sarah Rees Brennan. They wouldn't let me have the last N on Twitter. It's just Sarah
They
Rees Brennan.
said no more ends for you. You have enough.
They're like, young lady, why do you need two surnames? I was like, oh, I don't know.
That's so funny.
Uh, that did mean that at a couple of events, people who like followed me on Twitter were like, Miss Reese Brenna? And I was like, no.
It's Brennan, but
Just
thank you.
Sarah is fine, but also no. Um, or it's sarahreesbrennan.com and
Okay.
The Fairy's Path by Ava Cargan, which is still me.
Still
Me
you.
and me and the talents of the Wink scriptwriters.
Yes.
And Lighting the Fire by Sarah Rees Brennan are available online and in all truly good bookshops.
Amazing, amazing. Sarah, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for your dedication to the fandom and your books. And we are looking forward to even more tie ins from you.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you, fairy friends. Thank you so much, Lola.
Thanks. Until next time, I am Lola Valentine, and this is the Winx Forever Podcast.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Winx Forever Podcast, be sure to follow or subscribe to the show on your preferred streaming platform to be notified when new episodes drop. Join in on the conversation when you follow at Winx Forever Podcast on social media. The theme for the Winx Forever Podcast is the song She Makes Magic by Big Waz.